ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجلا يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة يردن الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم عنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا ونطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون. فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم. امتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخنا على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وظللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحيي الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. صدق الله العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. فاتحة.
صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله قال: سمعت فاطمة أنها قالت: دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال: السلام عليك يا فاطمة. فقلت: عليك السلام. قال: إني أجد في بدني ضعفا. فقلت له: أعوذك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف. فقال: يا فاطمة ائتيني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به. فأتيته بالكساء اليماني فغطيته به وسرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلعلع كأنه البدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال: يا أماه إني أشم عندك راهية طيبة كأنها راهية جدي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك تحت الكساء. فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدا يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معه تحت الكساء. فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال: السلام عليك يا أماه. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي. فقال لي: يا أماه إني أشم عندك راهية طيبة كأنها راهية جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. فقلت: نعم، إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء. فذهب الحسين نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا جدة، السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع عمتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل معهما تحت الكساء. فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال: السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله. فقلت: وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين. فقال: يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك راهية طيبة كأنها راهية أخي وابن عمي رسول الله. فقلت: نعم، هاء مع ولديك تحت الكساء. فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال له: وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسي وخالفتي وصاحب لوائي، قد أذنت لك. فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيته نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ قال: وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بضعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء. فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرفي الكساء وأومى بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء الأهل البيت وخاصتي وحامتي، لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا هرب لمن هاربهم، والسلم لمن سالبهم، وعدو لمن عاداهم، ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم، فاجعل صلواتك وبركتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. وقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات، إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء. فقال العمين جبرائيل: يا رب ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل البيت النبوة ومعدن رسالهم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها. فقال جبرائيل: يا رب أتأذن لي أن أحبط إلا الأرض ليكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتاهية والإكرام ويقول لك: وعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا مدهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لعجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم، فهل تأذنوا لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وهي الله، إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء فقال لأبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. فقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلا أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال النبي الثانية: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واستفاني بالرسالة نجيا، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله هم إلى يمين، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غم إلى يمين، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجة إلى يمين. فقال علي: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد. الفاتحة.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
लिपट के शाह से कहती है फातिमा रो के, फातिमा میرے حسین میرے حسین میں کتنے تیر نکالوں کہ تم کو چین ملے میں کتنے تیر نکالوں کہ تم کو چین ملے بتا حسین زیادہ ہے درد اس جہاں پر یہ ماں نکال لے وہ تیر یا علی کہہ کر یہ ماں نکال لے وہ تیر یا علی کہہ کر تڑپ نہ دیکھا نہیں جاتا اب تو مادر سے میرے حسین میرے حسین میں کتنے تیر نکالوں کہ تم کو چین ملے وہ جس کو پیار سے 18 سال پالا ہے اسی کے سینے پہ ظالم نے نیزہ مارا ہے جواں کے سینے سے کھینچی ہے خود سینہ تو نے میرے حسین میرے حسین میں کتنے تیر نکالوں کہ تم کو چین ملے نہ ہاتھ پہلو سے اٹھانا تھم سکے آنسو تمہیں تو یاد ہے زخمی ہوا میرا پہلو تمہیں تو یاد ہے زخمی ہوا میرا پہلو چھپا نہ پاؤ گے پہلو کا درد اب ماں سے میرے حسین میرے حسین میں کتنے تیر نکالوں کہ تم کو چین ملے تمہیں رکھا ہے صدا اپنی چھاؤ میں نے بلا کی دھوپ ہے مقتل میں اے میرے بچے تمہاری لاش پہ سایہ کروں گی بالوں سے میرے حسین میرے حسین میں کتنے تیر نکالوں کہ تم کو چین ملے قضا نے تجھ سے مجھے کم سینی میں چھین لیا زمانہ ہو گیا تجھ سے ملے ہوئے بیٹا زمانہ ہو گیا تجھ سے ملے ہوئے بیٹا لگا لو پھر تجھے سینے کو مجھ کو چین ملے میرے حسین میرے حسین میں کتنے تیر نکالوں کہ تم کو چین ملے حسین بولے مبارک یہ ماں سے روتے ہوئے اے ماں نکال لو بس تیر میرے پہلو سے اے ماں نکال لو بس تیر میرے پہلو سے جبھی ہو سجدے میں جس وقت میرا دم نکلے آئے میری ماں آئے میری ماں چلو
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله وسلم عليك يا رسول الله وعلى أهل بيتك المعصومين الأبرار الميامين المظلومين المنتجبين ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم وأمنا من لجأ إليكم ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائكم من الأولين والآخرين السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولو شئنا لرفعناه ولكنه أخلد إلى الأرض واتبع هواه فمثله كمثل الكلب إن تحمل عليه يلهث وإن تتركه يلهث ذلك بما كذبوا بآياتنا فاقصص القصص لعلهم يتفكرون صلوات الله Once an individual testifies that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, such an individual becomes a Muslim. And in Allah's estimation, such an individual then is deserving of paradise. Allah promises an individual who testifies to this that his eternal abode is Jannah and bliss. And this was the slogan of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when he used to preach the early days in Mecca, he used to go around the streets of Mecca saying, قُولُوا لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ تُفْلِحُوا. Say La ilaha illallah, you will succeed. Tuflihu means you will have eternal success. Your salvation lies in saying La ilaha illallah. Because La ilaha illallah is what every messenger brought with him. Adam came to teach people La ilaha illallah. When they forgot, Nuh came to remind them La ilaha illallah. Musa alayhi salam La ilaha illallah. This is the central foundation, the foundation stone of Islam. La ilaha illallah. However, despite this promise, there are two instances where an individual, after having become a Muslim and testifying to this kalima, he or she may still fail to attain salvation. He or she may still not make it to Jannah. These two categories of people, and this is just one way of looking at it, of course, it's a broad categorization, and you can certainly divide this in a lot more subdivisions if you like. At a high level, one of these groups would be those whom we would call cruel, cold-hearted, cold-blooded, individuals who are merciless, who have no compassion or love within themselves, individuals who derive pleasure in cheating others, in looting, in killing others. Individuals who, when we think of this category of people, the names that are evoked or that come to our mind would be names like Yazid and Fir'aun and Shimr and Saddam and names like that. By the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of us, most of us, inshallah all of us, do not fall in this category. So we do not worry that we may not attain salvation or not make it to Jannah because of these attributes. Because by the grace of Allah we have been blessed with compassion, with love, with mercy. When we see a child, we show love to the child. We lift the child, we kiss the child, we hold the child in our hands. There was a man who once saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam playing with his grandsons, Imam al-Hasan and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he would hug them and he would kiss them. And the man was sitting beside the Prophet. He said, Ya Rasulullah, do you know Allah has given me 8 sons and I have never kissed even one of them? With pride. To which Rasulullah became very angry and upset and said to the man, if Allah has not put mercy in your heart, what should I do? If there is no raham in your heart. And when the man got up and left in anger, Rasulullah said to his ashab, if you wish to see a man of the fire of hell, then behold, this man is one of those. So it is a great mercy that you are moved when you see compassion. Right? So we don't worry as of being for that category. There is another category though that we must worry about. And that category are those who, despite being religious and despite being sincere and despite wanting the hereafter, cannot let go of their love for this world. There is an attachment, an obsession, an addiction to something of this world for which, when it comes to choosing between the hereafter and this world, they will let go of the hereafter for that. And history is replete with such examples. And this is something that we all need to be aware and consider and think about, because part of our growth and evolution as human beings is having this experience where when we grow as children into young adults, into full-grown adults, we are attracted to different things at different times of our lives. When we are children, it might be our toys. A little older, it might be a bicycle. It might be older, it might be our car. A little older, it might be a relationship with someone, our spouse. A little older, it might be an obsession and addiction with our homes, our business, our career. even older power, authority, control, leadership. These are the things in themselves, they are not evil, they are good, provided you continue to possess them and they do not possess you. Why? Because the heart of a human being is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah's intention is, I created everything for you, but I created you for me. You do all that you want that is halal. Every ni'mah that I have created, I created for your subservience. Everything is working for your happiness. I created the sun. Something like Jupiter is thousands of times bigger than the Earth. The sun is thousands of times bigger than Jupiter. I created this whole solar system, the moon, the oceans, the animals, the birds, the plants, the rains, the seasons, the vegetation, to support you. I gave you dominance over all this. You use the world in your advantage. But I created you for me. Everything is a sign to point you towards me. When our heart is attached to something other than Allah, that is when we are in danger. And this is really the subject that I want to develop here by the blessings of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, in whose name we have gathered. It is one thing to curse people in history, because hindsight is 20/20, right? If you look at the history of our Imams, you will see that everyone followed an Imam to a particular point and then they broke away. There were people who followed Imam Ali alayhi salam, but when Imam Hassan became the Imam, they left him. And there are people who followed Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, the 4th, 5th Imam, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. When Imam al-Qadhi became the Imam, they left him. They branched out into other sects. Then there were people who stopped at the 7th Imam. There were people who stopped at the 8th Imam, at the 9th Imam. For us to look back at history and say we believe in the 12 Imams that the Prophet said is easy, because we have come later on. Hindsight is 20/20. But to have lived in those times and made the right decision would require a lot of sincerity and a purity of heart. In the same manner, it is very easy for us to curse Yazid and curse such and such a Khalifa and to curse Harun and to curse Mutawakkil and Umar ibn Sa'd. But the question remains, if I was in that position, what would I do? Do I have the courage that Hur had, for example? To have gone that far and then having changed overnight. If the individuals whom we curse were all merciless, it wouldn't have been an issue. If everyone would have been like Shimr or like Yazid, it would have been very easy to say, if I had lived in those times, I would definitely not have been like him. Even if I was placed in that position, given that authority, that power, that wealth, this would not have been my fate. But there were individuals who at face value were sincere, were religious. Something terribly went wrong towards the end of their lives. And that something was the love of the world. It is those individuals in whose shoes we have to constantly place ourselves and measure ourselves before we curse. It is then and only then we earn the right to curse. And I'll give you examples. One example is given in the Quran itself. The verse that I began with from Surah Al-A'raf, chapter 7 of the Quran, verse 176. This was an individual who lived a long time, perhaps in the time of Nabi Musa alayhi salam or thereabouts. His name is given in history as Bal'am ibn Ba'ura. He is not mentioned in the Quran by name. He was an individual who was extremely religious and pious, to a point that some narrators say he reached such levels of spirituality that if he looked towards the heavens he could see the angels. He had one weakness, the love of pleasure and lust for this world. He could not break away from that. Every time he ascended, that brought him down. And there came a point in life when Allah gives you sufficient opportunities and chances and tests. There came a point where he reached a crossroad where he had to choose either the love of the world or the hereafter. And he chose the world because his heart was too attached to it at that point. Now Allah describes this individual in the Quran, chapter 7, verse 176. He says, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَاهُ. Had we wished, we would have elevated him even higher. وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. But he clung to the earth. He wouldn't let go of dunya. وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ. And he became a slave of his lust. فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ. So his example is that of a dog. Look at where he was. Allah is calling him a dog. Why? When Allah calls someone a dog, it's not just to abuse in a derogatory sense, like we would look at someone and say, kalb. It's not kalb like that. He explains why. The nature of a dog is that a dog, despite its positive qualities like its loyalty and its faithfulness to its master, a dog has no self-respect. A dog will come and stand at your door and stick its tongue out and loll its tongue and wag its tail and just stare. Particularly those of you who come from countries where a lot of stray dogs are found on the roads, in the alleys, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It will follow you, it will come to your house, stand around, you throw food at it, it will eat the food, it will still stand there and still loll its tongue out and still wag its tail. It has no sense of shame. When a person is addicted to this world, they will lose, the first thing they will lose is their self-respect. For the sake of wealth, for the sake of power, for the sake of a woman, for the sake of lust, for the sake of desire, they will shame themselves. They will reach a point where they will not care what people think about them. A sense of shamelessness. And that is why Allah says, فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ إِن تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْهِ يَلْحَثْ أَوْ تَتْرُكُهُ يَلْحَثْ. If you go towards it, it lolls its tongue out to you. If you leave it alone, it still lolls its tongue towards you. And then Allah says, this is because he denied our signs. فَقْصُصِ الْقَصَصَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Therefore narrate these stories to people so that they may reflect and ponder on this. Allah wants us to talk about this so that we think about this and say, what is it that destroys people's akhirah? So much so that one might even say that our purpose in life is to bring ourselves to a point where we can detach from this world so that we are from the world but not of the world. Or in the words of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, كونوا أبناء الآخرة ولا تكونوا أبناء الدنيا. Be the children of the hereafter, do not be the children of this world. The world has its children, the hereafter has its children. Realize, make a choice whose children you want to be. If you want to be the children of the hereafter, then your home is the hereafter. And the way you lead your life in this world must reflect this. It must show in how you dress, in how you eat, in how you talk, in how you work, in how you raise your family, in where you set your priorities. It must show that this one is a child of the hereafter. It is not difficult to see, look in the mirror and decide, am I a child of this world or a child of the hereafter? Now, we bring examples from history that are closer to our time. There are so many examples amongst the companions of the Prophet, amongst his Sahaba, who were very loyal and faithful during the time of the Prophet. But something happened, they changed after. And a lot of times when you study their history, it was greed for the world. It was greed for power. After all, what was the downfall of Iblis himself? Iblis was very obedient to Allah. He used to worship Allah to a degree that no angel has ever or will ever worship. It was when he found that Allah is making Adam his vicegerent and his Khalifa on the earth and not him, that greed for power is what caused his destruction, isn't it? And consistently in history you will see, even after the Prophet, the Sahabas who went astray, it was power that did it. Take a simple example, somebody like Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Zubayr ibn al-Awwam was a cousin to Rasulullah and to Imam Ali alayhi salam. How? Zubayr's mother was the sister to Abu Talib and Abdullah and Hamza and Abbas, all the sons of Abdul Muttalib. So Abu Talib is the father of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Abdullah is the father of Rasulullah. Their sister was Zubayr's mother. Zubayr was one of those, when people fled on the day of Uhud, and left Rasulullah alone without anyone to protect him, and Imam Ali stood to protect the Prophet, there was very few people who stood. One of those whose names are given is Zubair. He did not flee. Zubair's love for Imam Ali was so intense that when the Prophet passed away and people were being forced to pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr, Zubair was one of those who refused. He was one of those who went to the house of Imam Ali and hid in the house of Imam Ali. They had to drag him from the house of Imam Ali to bring him to the mosque and force him to pledge allegiance to Abu Bakr. Zubair was one of those who, when Umar died and appointed a shura of 6 people, one of them was Zubair. Zubair gave up his opportunity to be the caliph for Imam Ali. But when Uthman died and Imam Ali became the Khalifa of the Muslimin, Zubair and Talha came to Imam Ali and asked him for position. To which Imam Ali said they wanted a share in the Khilafah because they had already been chosen by Umar in the Shura. So they had already tasted that idea that I have the potential to be the caliph of the whole Ummah. I have an opportunity to be the leader of this community. So that idea was left in their mind. That the fact that Umar chose us in the Shura, I have this potential. So they came to Imam Ali and wanted what we might call today a piece of the action. To which Imam Ali alayhi salam said, you will help me in the cause of Islam, but you cannot share in Imamah and Khilafah. Because this is not something for me to give. And that is when they made the pretext of going for Hajj, and they went to Basra, and they raised an army, and together with Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, the daughter of Abu Bakr, the 3 of them, Talha, Zubair and Aisha, the battle of Jamal rose against Imam Ali. In the end, Zubair died. He was killed, and now nobody knows his fate. Some say he is cursed, some say let us not say anything about him, Allah will decide about him. Allahu A'lam. What was it that was his downfall? It was the world. And he was influenced, I should mention, by his son. Why? Because his wife was a woman who was an enemy to Imam Ali alayhi salam. She raised her son with hatred. Her son was called Abdullah bin Zubair. Abdullah bin Zubair was livid in his hatred for Imam Ali. He influenced his father, because of which Imam Ali alayhi salam says in Nahj al-Balagha, Zubair continued to be a member of our family until his wretched son Zubair, Abdullah came forth. And that is why Allah says in the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwun lakum fahdharhum. Amongst your spouses and your children, some are your enemies, therefore beware. In another place in Surah Al-Munafiqun, he says, لا تلهكم أموالكم وأولادكم عن ذكر الله ومن يفعل ذلك فأولئك هم الخاسرون. Never let your children and your wealth take you away from the remembrance of God. Whoever does that, indeed, these are the losers. So you will be tested and tried in every possible manner you can imagine. There is not a single individual in this room who will die without being tested. You will either be tested with a physical illness. You will either be tested with loss of wealth. You will either be tested with a loss of a child. You will either be tested with a troublesome child, or a troublesome spouse, or a troublesome neighbor, or a troublesome employer, or some calamity will befall you, but it will be a trial. You will have to prove that what you claim is true in action. And there are numerous ayats of Quran that will take me away from this subject if I was to go into it. You can read the opening verses of Surah Al-Ankabut, for example, very clearly. You will not be left without being tried and tested. I want to give you one more example that will really make this very clear. And when I give this example, I urge you, even though it is an example of a man who is wretched and whom we curse all the time, I urge you to put yourself in his shoes and take yourself back in time and just see the human nature of this, the temptation. And this individual is none other than Umar ibn Sa'ad. Umar ibn Sa'ad was the commander of the army in Karbala against Imam Hussein alayhi salam. The way Umar ibn Sa'ad ended in Karbala is that when Yazid appointed Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad as his governor in Kufa, because he found out that the people of Kufa had invited Imam Hussein alayhi salam from Mecca and he wanted to put a stop to that, so he appointed Ibn Ziyad because he knew this was a wretched, harsh man who will use any means possible to stop this. Ibn Ziyad recognized that Umar ibn Sa'd is not the cruel, cold-blooded killer like Shimr or himself. But he has one weakness, the love of this world. He cannot resist the world. So first he called him. He said to Umar ibn Sa'd, I am looking for a governor for Ray. Ray is what today we call Tehran. It was a rich, lush a place that anyone would want authority over. I'm looking for someone to be my governor or to take over Ray, and your name has come up and we think you are the most suitable candidate. And Umar ibn Sa'd was totally taken in by that. His eyes must have just sort of glazed over with the love of this idea. Then he left him with this abit and told him at a certain time you will take a group of people, an army with you, and go to Ray. Then he called him again. He said, by the way, before you take Ray, there is one condition. You have to go to outside Kufa, intercept the qafila of Hussein bin Ali, and stop him from coming into Kufa, and I will send you orders of what to do. You may have to fight him, you may have to kill him, you may have to force him, you may have to bring him to me as a prisoner. Unless you do this, you cannot have Ray. You see how he trapped him? He hooked him on that. The books of history say that Umar ibn Sa'd refused at first, but this is again the idea of peer pressure. When you hang out with wrong friends, the kind of pressure they can apply on you. Ibn Ziyad flattered him, pressured him, convinced him, to which Umar ibn Sa'd said, give me one night to think about it. You see, Hur had one night. Umar ibn Sa'd had his one night as well. We are told in the books of history, the whole night Umar ibn Sa'd stayed up thinking, Ray, kill Hussein. Ray, kill Hussein. Ray. He composed verses of poetry that are in the books of history to say, on one hand I see myself between heaven and hell, on the other hand there is Ray that I do not wish to give up. The same thing that Hur said, I see myself between heaven and hell. Then he said, Jannat has been promised, but it is not in front of me. Who knows? It is true, it is not true. I will get it, I will not get it. But Ray is in my hands. What we say in English, a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. That is his logic, right? So he comes the next day to Ibn Ziyad and says, okay, I'll do it. He sets out. Look at that's why I'm saying put yourself in his shoes. He sets out. Numerous people stop him. Some related to him, some friends. Ya Ibn Sa'd, you are going to kill the son of Fatima. Do not do this, you will destroy your hereafter. One of the books of history says after he marched out, he went back to Ibn Ziyad to say, I don't want to do this. But at that point Ibn Ziyad would not take no for an answer. He marched out with 4,000 men. It's not over yet. You see love of the world, how it acts. Imam Hussein alayhi salam comes to Karbala on the 2nd of Muharram. Umar ibn Sa'd arrives on the 3rd of Muharram with 4,000 men. And I mentioned two categories of people at the start. As much as Umar ibn Sa'd is cursed, and I have no hesitation in saying La'natullah alayh, but he was not of the first category. He was not like Hurmala and Shimr. He was a man who refused to accept that he must choose between the world and the hereafter. He wanted both, even though it is impossible. He comes to Karbala. The first thing he does is he approaches Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He says, tell me, O Hussein, why have you come here? What is your business here? Imam Hussein alayhi salam tells him, I have not come of my own accord. The people of Kufa wrote to me a lot of letters. I have a whole camel load of bags of letters here. You can see them. I have come on their invitation. If they do not want me now, I am happy to go back. Umar ibn Sa'd writes a letter to Ibn Ziyad, to Kufa, and says to him, I have spoken to Hussein, and he is willing to go back. So there is no need to fight. He says he has come here on the invitation of the people of Kufa. If you let him go, he is going back. Ibn Ziyad refuses. He says, don't let him go. Now that we have him, he wants to get out of our hands. Keep him with you until you receive further instructions from me. Now Umar ibn Sa'd is there. The books of history says every night Umar ibn Sa'd used to sit with Imam Hussein and have one-on-one meetings until late at night. Can you imagine sitting with an Imam as your counselor until late at night, every night, and the Imam is explaining to him every logic possible? He's saying to him, Umar ibn Sa'd, what is it that you are getting to do this? You're getting Ray? Whatever you will earn from Ray, I will give you from my expenses. I have orchards in Medina. I will pay you. Love of the world. Because there isn't just money. There is power as well. You see, power has its own sweetness. It trickles like honey. He refuses. He says, no, I cannot do this. Imam Hussein is telling him, I am prophesying to you, you will not eat even a mustard seed of rye. You will not get rye, I am assuring you. Nothing changes him. He holds his position. Another instruction comes from Ibn Ziyad. 7th of Muharram, I have come to know that Hussein has camped on the banks of Furat and his family is drinking water freely. Move them away, no water for them. So what you see is that the more we delay the process of detaching from the world, the more it snares us. It gets more and more difficult we do a lot worse. And then there is what I call a snowball effect. It gets to a point where Shaitan convinces us that now I've reached a point where Allah will not forgive me. So there's no point in stopping now. I might as well go the whole hog and just keep doing more and more and more, right? You see, Umar ibn Sa'd, when he killed Hur, he could have stopped. But then he killed Habib, then he killed Muslim ibn Awsaja, then he killed Zubair, then he killed this, then he killed Qasim and Aun and Muhammad and Abbas, and even up to the time when only Imam Hussein was left, he could have stopped. And if he repented, the generosity of the Ahlul Bayt is that Imam Hussein would have forgiven him. But the more you leave this matter, the worse it gets. It gets to a point where you say, I've done the whole thing, what's the point of stopping now? Now I have chosen my fate, I'm going to hell anyway, I might as well go the whole hell. You see, this is what was happening. 7th Muharram, he moves Imam Hussein away. I'm going into this detail because I think some of this line of thought does not come out in the 12 days of Muharram during the Masai because of the limitation of time. Now look at what happens. On the 8th of Muharram, Imam Hussein, another letter comes from Ibn Ziyad to Umar ibn Sa'd. He says, now tell Hussein he must either pledge allegiance to Yazid or he must face death. This is on the 8th of Muharram. Umar ibn Sa'd meets with Imam Hussein, he tells him this again. Imam Hussein alayhi salam tells him, I have a suggestion. Why don't we all either go to Kufa or go to Damascus? I'm willing to travel with my family all the way to Damascus. Let me discuss this issue of paying allegiance directly with Ibn Ziyad or with Yazid. So you don't have to stain your hands with my blood. Let me reason with them. Whether I pledge allegiance or I don't, I will decide with them. You take me there, I will talk to them. You don't want the first option of letting me go back to Medina. You're not letting me go to Kufa. You're not letting me go anywhere else. Take me to Ibn Ziyad. Take me to Yazid. I will talk to them. On the 8th of Muharram, Umar ibn Sa'd writes a letter to Ibn Ziyad again. He sends a messenger to Kufa. He says, I have solved the problem now. We don't have to kill the grandson of the Prophet. Hussein has given us a very good option. He has given us two options. There is no reason to reject any of these. He says, let him come to you or to Yazid and he will pledge allegiance himself. Now at this point we are told Shimr al-Jawshan was sitting beside Ibn Ziyad. When Ibn Ziyad reads this letter, he is thinking about it, and he says, well, there are two options, and it looks like Umar ibn Sa'd is sincerely trying to reconcile and create some sort of a peace. To which we are told, Shimr al-Jawshan jumps up and says, are you going to accept these options? These options are not acceptable. Umar ibn Sa'd is a weak man. He is spending time just sitting, talking with Hussein, having all these peace talks. This is not why you sent him. Tell him, take allegiance or kill him. There's no other option. What is he doing, right? If he can't do it, let me go, I'll do it. Now he wanted power as well. And then he also pushed this idea to Ibn Ziyad and said, look, if he comes to you, he is not going to pledge allegiance to you. This is the son of Ali. You know and I know. He will not pledge allegiance to you. If he goes to Yazid, even if he pledges allegiance to Yazid, the credit will go to Yazid. He must pledge allegiance to you at your hands, or you kill him, so that you have the honor of saying it was you who dealt with him. At this point, Ibn Ziyad likes the idea. He sends Shimr al-Jawshan with an army of 4,000 men. This is on the 9th of Muharram. Now look at how fast things escalate when Allah has given you enough time and you refuse to accept a change. It just snowballs, and as it comes down, it gets faster and faster and faster, and then it just snowballs out of control. Absolutely. 9th Muharram, before Dhuhr, Shimr al-Jawshan arrived. These names that we talk about in Masaid, Hurmala and Shimr and all, these are not individuals. These were commanders of armies. They each held large units of the army in which they played a role. He comes with the letter of Ibn Ziyad to Karbala, 9th Muharram, before noon. He shows the letter to Umar ibn Sa'd. The letter says, Ya ibn Sa'd, I did not send you to sit and have talks with Hussein and try and find solutions. I sent you to either take allegiance or to kill him. If you can do it, do it. If you cannot do it, hand over power and control to Shimr al-Jawshan. He will be the commander of the army. The books of history say that Umar ibn Sa'd, when he read this letter, he said to Shimr, it is you who stopped Ibn Ziyad from accepting the two options that I sent him. And this is your doing. To which Shimr replied, forget about that, I just want to know, are you going to kill Hussein or do I take over? At this point Ibn Sa'd says, I will not give you the pleasure of being the leader of this army. I will do this myself. And they went to attack the same day that Shimr arrived, on the 9th of Muharram, in the evening, to which Imam Hussein said, give us one night and let the battle be tomorrow. And there are reasons for that. Imam Hussein did not want the battle in the night because that would have hidden a lot of things that happened on the day of Ashura. Then a lot of things would have been said, we shot the arrow by mistake, we didn't know this was Aliyun al-Akbar, we didn't know this, we didn't know... He wanted this to happen during the day. As well, by asking for that night, other souls were rescued, like Hur, for example. And the next day, when some of these people were passing by the camps of Hussein, we are told on one occasion, Hurmala and Shimr, they passed by the tents of Imam Hussein. And people like Zuhair ibn Qayn and Muslim ibn Awsaja said to Imam Hussein, Ya ibn Rasulullah, if you permit us with one arrow, we will kill them. To which Imam Hussein said, I do not wish to be the one who starts this battle. And Umar ibn Sa'd was the one who shot the first arrow. And he said to the people, bear witness before Ibn Ziyad and Yazid that I shot the first arrow at Hussein. Why? So that it should not be mistaken that Shimr shot the first arrow. Now look at all the human factors that come here, the jealousy, the greed, the power, the love of this world. These are the things that we really, really need to think about and be very wary and thoughtful about, my dear brothers. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala. And we see that with Hur, again, he had the same choice as well, right? But what did he choose? He said, I see myself between heaven and hell, and I choose heaven over hell. So every decision you make in life, at work, at home, at university, when you're alone, when you're with people, when you're at the mosque, when you're volunteering in the community, Every decision you make, you are making a choice between heaven and hell. There is a beautiful, beautiful hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And all his hadith are beautiful. But in this hadith he says, إِذَا أَرَدْتَ أَن تَفْعَلَ شَيْئًا فَتَدَبَّرْ آخِرَتَهُ. It is so short but so deep and profound. He says, whenever you intend to do anything, then consider its consequences in the hereafter. فَتَدَبَّرْ آخِرَتَهُ. Do tadabbur of its akhirah. Any decision you want to make. You want to change your job, you want to move countries, you want to get married, you want to have a child, you want to change careers, you want to take a career path at university, you want to wear hijab, you want to remove hijab, whatever you want to do. You want to stop praying Fajr because it's coming in the way with your job, you want to skip Salat because you can't take a lunch break, you have to go to a business lunch with colleagues but there is alcohol on the table. Any decision you make in life, the first thought the Prophet says is just think, how does this affect my akhirah? If this thought is constantly with you, فَتَدَبَّرْ آخِرَتَهُ, and you realize that your life in this world is short, it's temporary, and you are primarily a soul, not a body, and that you are not a physical being undergoing a spiritual experience, but you are all spiritual beings undergoing a physical experience, then your perspective on life changes. You look at things differently. I want to share a few hadith very quickly and then come to a conclusion. We have one hadith from the Prophet himself. He says, أَكْبَرُ الْكَبَائِرِ حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا. The greatest of all sins is the love of this world. حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا أَصْلُ كُلُّ مَعْصِيَةٍ وَأَوَّلُ كُلِّ ذَنْبٍ. The love of this world is the root of every sin, and it is the first cause in every sin you commit. Every sin that any human being commits, the first root is love of the world. If there was no love of the world, there wouldn't be that sin. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, إِنَّكَ لَن تَلْقَ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ بِعَمَلٍ أَضَرٌّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ حُبِّ الدُّنْيَا. You will not come to your Lord and meet Him on the Day of Judgment with anything more harmful to you than the love of this world. When you come before your Lord on the Day of Judgment, beware, the greatest danger that you will carry with you is the degree of love for this world. لَسْنَا لِلدُّنْيَا خُلِقْنَا وَلَا بِسَعْيِ فِيهَا أُمِرْنَا. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, we were not created for this world, nor were we commanded to struggle and strive for this world. Obviously, with the understanding that I'm sure you all understand, that when you work and you struggle and you strive to support your family, to earn a lawful livelihood, that is not from this world, that is from akhirah. That is done with a different intention. But that constant greed, that acquiring your sense of security from how much you have in the bank as opposed to from Allah, that constant worry of what will happen if I grow old and I don't have enough money, or what will happen if people don't recognize me, that constant need to collect, to amass, to have power, to have control, that is what hubb ad-dunya, what attaches to the heart and becomes an addiction and an obsession. It could be something like sports or games. You play sports for health? Excellent. Islam encourages it. You play sports because it's an obsession, an addiction. It becomes so important that salat takes second priority. It becomes love of the world. It takes over. It means now, if you have to choose between the world and the hereafter, you will sacrifice your hereafter. The fact that you will sacrifice salat because World Cup is going on TV should tell you that if I was in Karbala, I would fight with Yazid for a few dirhams and dinars. Maybe not. Maybe this is an extreme example. But it is the start of things. This is how we measure ourselves, that when I choose between this world and the hereafter, what is it that I give preference to? And in a final hadith, Imam Ali alayhi salam says, أخرجوا من الدنيا قلوبكم قبل أن تخرجوا أبدانكم. O people, take your hearts out of this world before your bodies are taken out. In other words, come to a point in life where your body is still in this world, but your heart has already moved on to the hereafter. And so, obviously there is a lot of discussion around this to say, what is love of the world? How do we define it? How do we, keep an eye on how we're doing in terms of our attachment to the world versus the hereafter. But that is beyond the scope of this. This is more an introduction to say we need to be wary of this, my dear brothers and sisters. And of course, first I say this to myself, and then I say it to all of you. If you can recite a salawat ala Muhammad. I just want to give you a hint of how we can fight the love of the world, for us and for our children. One of the best ways to do this is the love of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam are a measure and a yardstick in opposition to the love of this world. Imam Ali alayhi salam himself divorced this world 3 times. So he represents the hereafter. You just have to open Nahjul Balagha, any page, to see where his focus is. You open the Quran and read, you will see where the focus is. That it is Akhirah. And this in itself is a lengthy discussion, perhaps for some other time. But a lot of people who made decisions to give up this world for the hereafter, they were able to do this because of their attachment to Ahlul Bayt. And I say this with certain audacity, not even attachment to Rasulullah. Because the people on Yazid's army also said, Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah. The problem was they didn't say, Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah. Okay? There was salat on both sides, there was kalma on both sides, there was adhan on both sides. Here there was Ahlul Bayt. So if you are rooted with the Ahlul Bayt, when push comes to shove, and we are in a situation where we have to choose between this world and the hereafter, rest assured, you will lean to the hereafter if you are already leaning to the Ahlul Bayt. The love of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam is not just an emotional love. It is a spiritual love. It holds your faith. It keeps you away from hypocrisy. Hur, of course, as I've been saying time and again, is an example. Why was Hur able to choose out of 30,000 men? Why Hur was able to say, I will go to Hussein? Because when he held the reins of the horse of Hussein first, and Imam Hussein said to him, may your mother weep for you, O Hur. What did Hur say? He said, if your mother had been anyone other than Fatima, I would have said the same to you. Which means he had this love for Fatima. And because of his love for Fatima, when he fell, Hussein tied the handkerchief of Fatima on his head. You see what the love of Ahlul Bayt can do to you. Very, very precious, the love of Ahlul Bayt. Do not give this up for anything. Raise your children rooted with this. The people who say the majlises of Fadail, of Wahwa, of Nare Haidari are wrong, they are wrong. What is important is that along with that love, we teach them to follow the footsteps of Ahlul Bayt as well. It should not be only Fadail, but then the person Fadail does not pray, does not fast, does not understand the message of the Ahlul Bayt. But with that message, Fadail is what has kept us alive to this day. It is the crying of Hussein that has kept this azar till today. If we had only been having philosophies and seminars and conferences and talking about the message of Imam Hussein, it wouldn't have survived 1400 years. It survived 1400 years through crying, through matam. There is an incident I want to narrate with regards to this before I actually come into the Masaib, and I've been actually asked to mention this. About 850 years ago, 580 AH or so, there lived a man called Jamaluddin al-Musali. He came from a place in Iraq called Mosul. His father was the governor of that place in Mosul. His father and mother were Nasibis. Nasibis meaning they were extreme in their hatred for the Ahlul Bayt, particularly in hatred for Imam Ali alayhi salam. They are called Nasibis. They didn't have any children. This Jamaluddin was not born at the time. His mother made a vow to Allah. She made a nadhr. She said, "Oh Allah, if you give me a son, I make a pledge to you, I will train him to kill the Shias of Hussein." This was her nadhr. He himself has narrated this. Sure enough, look at how Allah works. She had a son. And she kept her pledge. From the time he was a baby, she taught him to hate the Ahlul Bayt. She raised him with absolute hatred for the Ahlul Bayt and the Shia. When he grew to be a young man, a strong young man, she said to him, "My son, it is time for me to fulfill my vow. If you go down the road of Mosul, there are Shias from Lebanon in a place called Jabal Amil. The Shias of Jabal Amil, when they come to Karbala, they always pass through the road of Mosul. Wait for any qafila of Zawar and attack them and kill at least one of the Zawars of Hussein so that my nazar is fulfilled." The young man took his sword or his knife or his dagger, whatever, he went out. He sat by the road where all these caravans would pass. In the time of Muharram, they knew that now the qafilas will come and go for ziyarat of Hussein. He sat there. As he waited and waited and waited, he fell asleep. In the meantime, a caravan came. The caravan passed by and they went on without him waking up. When he woke up, he was covered in the dust of that caravan, but he missed the opportunity to kill them. And he was very, very sad. And he thought, I waited all day, and when finally they came, I missed them. So he went home thinking, I'm going to come tomorrow, and I'll wait again, and I'll kill this time. That night when he slept, he says, I had a dream. In my dream, it was the Day of Judgment. Yawmul Qiyamah. And I was presented for hisab, for accounting. And a voice said, this man is a Nasibi. He has hatred for the Ahlul Bayt. Take him to the fire of hell. So he says, in my dream, the angels took hold of me and they dragged me and they threw me in the fire of hell. When they threw me in the fire of hell, he says, the fire would not burn me. And the angel charged with hellfire, who is called Malik. Malik says to the fire, "O fire, burn him, he is an enemy of the Ahlul Bayt." The fire replies and says, I cannot burn him because on him is the dust of the Zawar of Hussein. This is the maqam of Zawar, not even the Shias of Hussein, still, not even the Ashab of Hussein. Now this Jamaluddin al-Musali says, he says, in my dream, the angels pulled me out from the fire. They dusted all the sand from the Zawar of Hussein from my body. Once they had cleaned me, they threw me again in the fire. And again the fire would not burn me. He says, now Malik asked the fire and said, tell me, we have removed the dust from him. We have washed him. Why do you not burn him? And the fire said, you have removed the dust from his body, but it has entered his heart now. The dust of the Zawar of Hussein has penetrated his heart. I cannot burn him. When he woke up, he cried. He changed. He went to Karbala himself for ziyarah. He saw the Zari of Hussein. He composed 2 lines, beautiful lines of poetry. He says, إِذَا شِئْتَ النَّجَاةِ فَزُرْ حُسَيْنًا. If you want salvation, then visit Hussein. لِكَيْ تَلْقَ الْإِلَهَ قَرِيرَ عَيْنٍ. So that on the day of judgment, when you come to your Lord, you may be met with that which will delight your eyes. Why? فَإِنَّ النَّارَ لَن تَمَسَّ جِسْمًا عَلَيْهِ غُبَارُ زُوَارِ الْحُسَيْنِ. For the fire will not touch a body on which has fallen the dust of the pilgrims of Hussein. إِذَا شِئْتَ النَّجَاةِ فَزُرْ حُسَيْنًا لِكَيْ تَلْقَ الْإِلَهَ قَرِيرَ عَيْنٍ فَإِنَّ النَّارَ لَن تَمَسَّ جِسْمًا عَلَيْهِ غُبَارُ زُوَارِ الْحُسَيْنِ. If this is the dust of the Zawar of Hussein, tell me what is the maqam of the Zawar of Hussein. And then tell me what is the maqam of the Ashab of Hussein. And then tell me what is the maqam of the Ahlul Bayt. What is the maqam of Sakina. What is the maqam of Imam Zainul Abidin. Yes, my dear brothers and sisters, these are the days and nights of Azah. Tonight is the 10th night since the shahadat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We are told that when this qafila was taken from Karbala to Kufa, by the will of Allah and by the power that an Imam holds, Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam came back to Karbala to bury his father and his companions and his family members. After 3 days of these bodies lying in the open hot sun, with no one to bury them and no one to look after them. The Banu Asad say, we came out to the fields and we saw bodies scattered everywhere. None of the bodies had a head on them. They were all without heads, and we did not know who to bury where and what to do. Suddenly we saw a young man, a young Arab, riding on a horse coming towards us. He came to us and we said to him, Man anta ya akhal Arab? Who are you, O Arab brother? He said, I will tell you whose body is where. And everybody, he cried. At every place he said, dig a grave here, bury this one here, bury that one there. Then he came to one body and he fell down on that body and cried. He wept on that body and he began crying to that and said, Amma dunya fa ba'daka mudlima. O you after whom this world has become dark. Wa amma al-akhirah fa bidurika mushrika. O you after whom the hereafter has become illuminated. Then he dug a grave. Then he went down in the grave alone and did not allow anyone to come with him. After he had buried that body, the Banu Asad say, he covered the grave and he came out. Then he took with his finger, he wrote on the grave, هذا قبر حسين ibn Ali, الذي قتل أتشانا غريبا. This is the grave of Hussein bin Ali, who was killed hungry and thirsty and a stranger in this land. When Imam Zain al-Abidin had buried all the other bodies, he said to the Banu Asad, O Banu Asad, look around. Is there anybody left that has not been buried? They said, yes, ya akhal Arab. There is one body by the banks of Furat. Every time we lift one part of it, the other part falls down. They have cut it with swords and spears. We cannot lift that body. Imam said to them, take me to the banks of Furat. He came to the Furat. He saw a body lying there. He fell on the body. فَانْكَبَّ عَلَى جَسَدِهِ وَقَالَ يَا الدُّنْيَا بَعْدَ خَلَافًا يَا قَمَرْ بَنِي هَاشِمْ يَا قَمَرَ الْعَشِيرَةِ. Imam buried his uncle Abbas. Then he went back to Kufa again by the will of Allah. In Kufa all sorts of qiyamah began for this Imam. In the Darbar he saw Ibn Ziyad striking the lips of Hussein with a stick. He saw Ibn Ziyad cursing his father. Those who protested to this were killed. When the Qafila was taken through the streets of Kufa, Zainab alayhi salam with Sakina, the women are standing on the rooftops and throwing things at them. A woman by the name of Habiba sees a little girl asking her Aunt Zainab, I am really thirsty, I cannot bear this thirst anymore. To which Habiba is moved by this. She takes a little bowl of water and comes down her house. She comes to the little daughter not knowing who this is. She says to her little girl, I heard you saying you are thirsty, I have brought some water for you. But I have an Imam called Ali who said that when a yatim prays for you, your du'as are always accepted. Before you drink this water, say a little prayer for me. The little girl wants to drink water. Zainab says, Ruqayya, answer her prayers, pray for her first, then drink water. Ruqayya is waiting to drink water. Habiba says to Ruqayya, oh little girl, first pray to Allah that my children should not become orphans like you have become. Sakina lifts her little hands, oh Allah, preserve her children. Let not her children become yatima like I have become. Habiba says to the little girl, now pray for me to go to Medina for ziyarah. Zainab hears the name of Medina. Oh lady, she says, what have you to do with Medina? She says, do you not know my Mawla Hussein is in Medina? Do you not know Zainab, the daughter of Ali, is in Medina? I wish to do ziyarat of Hussein. Zainab says to Habiba, oh Habiba, if you see Zainab, will you recognize her? She says, of course I will recognize her. She lived in Kufa 20 years ago. Zainab parts her hair and says, Habiba, I am Zainab. Habiba, your dua has been accepted. This is the head of Hussein on the spear. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Wa imama wa madluma. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون إلهي بحق محمد وأنت المحمود وبحق علي وأنت الأعلى وبحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض وبحق الحسن وأنت المحسن وبحق الحسين وأنت قديم الإحسان وبحق 9 المعصومين من ذرية الحسن والحسين يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله